is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 186. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him He's sitting here, beautiful weekend in Austin, Texas. A kind of surprisingly busy week of Austin FC news to recap. So another jam-packed off-season episode ahead. But just like when we convened last week, haven't seen you in a while, my friend. I know we're actually recording, a little peek behind the curtain here. We're recording on Saturday. So if we miss anything, we'll splice that in later. But I know we're going to see each other later tonight. Go throw some darts. But it's been a while. So how you feeling, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing all right, man. Looking forward to getting into this news that came down the old chute here throughout the course of this week. Looking back on some guys that we've said goodbye to at this point in time now. And, not too many surprises in that camp, but still when it actually comes across the North End desk and you get it there and it starts to hit home and you realize that these guys aren't going to be a part of the club anymore, get a little bit emotional. So I am looking forward to looking back on some fond memories with these guys that we've had that we're going to have to say goodbye to here, and looking towards the future and everything, and talking about some extensions and the other news that has come in. So I'm excited for that. Excited to kick your ass in darts later tonight. And if anyone needs concrete evidence that I do dominate Zach in darts, we have an official record keeper that has all of our victories down the list taking place. So I'm looking forward to that, man.
Yeah, of course. If you've ever met us and hung out with us, you are not surprised that we have a database of our dart statistics. And if we're talking wins and losses again, right? Just to follow up on last week, you were sweating for a little bit after we recorded that pod because you were all high and mighty from that early window. We're headed into Sunday Night Football, and I had the lead in that game. You did come out on top, so congrats to you from the defending champion to a peasant. Congrats on your regular season win, my friend. Let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Before we do, just want to remind you all listening or watching on the YouTube that the best way to support the show is by downloading the audio version of all of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And most of those places where you get your podcasts have an option to toggle on auto downloads. You do that, you can support the show going forward without having to think about it further. You can go the extra mile, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel. That also helps us grow the show. You can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, on this episode, hit that thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, atone for your sins, wash yourselves clean in the waters of the North End. Before we jump into the news, just real quick, we were invited last Sunday. I was the only one of us able to make it out to this, but by Richie Contreras from Otra, por favor. It's another great Austin FC, fan-made content there. And Richie and Rigo do, bilingual episodes. So sometimes you'll get an English episode. Most of them will be in Spanish. Sometimes there's some Spanglish mixed in there. But I've been a fan of Richie's over a couple iterations of his project over there at Otra, por favor. So this was a little roundtable discussion. So I got to go chop it up with Richie and the Moon Tower guys and Eric Goodman. Got to meet him in person. Moises Chuyan got to meet Moises in person. Our buddy Podcast P, Paul Fleets from the Verde Pendant, was out there as well. So that was fun. And once you get all caught up on your North End listening, I would encourage you to go check that out over at Otra, por favor. So that's Otra X Favor. Wherever, I think Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, right? We'll link that in the show notes here today, so you can go check that out.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that was shout out to Richie.
Shout out Richie for sure. Been a fan as well for a long time here, and that was a nice little panel that he had up there. The real heavy hitters.
Yeah, not just the invite, but hosting too. It can be tough, especially in a live setting like that. So it was a blast.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into some of this news. Kind of unexpected to me. And not that there was anything else going on Tuesday, but the club decided to drop just right in the middle of Tuesday afternoon the option decisions for the offseason. So we come about 3 weeks before that deadline. And like you kind of hinted at in the intro, no real surprises here.
Yeah.
2 of the options are exercised, one on Dani Pereira, one on Jimmy Farkalin. And then we have 5 options declined: Alex Ring, Ethan Finley, Johan Valencia, Matt Hedges, and Matt Bersano were all declined. There's one player missing in there. Hector Jimenez apparently is still in negotiations with the club. So we may see Hector come back in that, senior minimum role, the bench guy who's kind of, great in the locker room, a veteran leader, former champion. And, man, look, we're going to have supplemental spots open. If one of them goes back to Hector, I don't have a bad thing to say about that guy. I would welcome that if he wants another go around here.
Absolutely. And you look at the way that he was able to fill in this last season in times when we were in some desperate need of having some right back, some fullback help and everything like that. And he did his job well. Like there's nothing I could really point to that was like, oh God, that was a disaster. And we really looked terrible there. Obviously you have him coming in the Portland game and just getting smoked by Cabecita, but I'm not expecting him to keep pace with Cabecita in that type of situation. So I would also welcome him back on a nice little deal, get him on the supplemental spot and have him there for leadership. A guy who sets the tone in regard to how he works. Mm-hmm. People can look up to that. So I think he's a good, kind of asset to have for our younger guys and trying to teach like some true professionalism to some of our players. So I would definitely welcome Hector back. Yeah,
especially if we're trying to get the average age down, right? All of those things that you just mentioned. That's, he's going to continue to be, I think, a great guy to have around the club. And again, like he exceeded my expectations in the time that he was on the field this year.
For sure.
So we'll keep our eye on Hector. Let's back up though to those options that were declined. And let's start with our first ever captain. We said it about a month ago, and 2 years ago when we lost in the Western Conference Final, the first thing I said to you and the Pirates who we were watching that game with that day was, what is the plan to move on from Alex Ring? So I was a couple years early with that thought, but now that it's here, right, a couple episodes ago, we said, we love Alex. It's time to move on just in terms of the trajectory of the team, and maybe the rest of his career will of course follow wherever Alex goes and cheer him on as long as he's not playing against our favorite team. But the first thing I wanted to talk about before we dive into kind of Alex's time here is share what he shared with us on his Instagram. He gave us a little farewell message here, and I'll just read it here. He said, "Thank you. I want to start off by thanking everyone for all the calls, text messages, and messages on social media. I wish I would have had the opportunity to say a proper goodbye to all of you at Q2 Stadium, but here goes. Respect, appreciation, and admiration are the first things that come to mind. It has been an eventful 4 years with highs and lows. To my former Verde teammates, I want to thank you all for being a part of my journey here. It was a privilege to share the locker room with you all. I wish you all nothing but the best in your future. To the staff around the players, the unsung heroes, words will do no justice for what you have done for the team, myself, and my family. I hope I showed my gratitude and appreciation throughout the years. Lastly, I want to humbly thank the fans. The energy and support you showed at Q2 home games filled me with pride to wear this jersey. The countless miles traveled to away games did not go unnoticed. It was an honor to captain this club." And that's Alex Ring's farewell message to Austin FC, to Austin FC fans. Yeah, man. I mean, he said he didn't have a chance to do a proper goodbye. I don't know. I said to you when he was walking past us after that decision day game, clapping at the fans, I said it looked a little bit different. That looked like a guy who was, maybe saying goodbye there. So it sounds like maybe he didn't know at that point, but was kind of trying to take it all in. And if you remember what I was doing after that game, I was doing the same. So yeah, man, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about him here over the next couple minutes, but I just want to, say salute captain, right? Our first ever captain, and a guy who really helped get our favorite team off the ground here through the expansion season. And like he said, the highs and lows over the first 4 years. So, I'm glad he did at least get to communicate this to all of us. And like I said earlier, we're going to be following him, cheering for him as long as his career continues.
Absolutely. Very well said in that message there. I really like the way that he was able to talk about teammates, the staff, and the fans as well, and just really show his appreciation. I mean, a guy who showed up to work every single time, and you knew what you were going to get out of him. He was going to play hard. He was going to be physical. He wasn't going to back down from anybody, and he represented the badge really well, in my opinion, and he really got this franchise off the ground and started and tried to set a tenacious kind of tone to how we were going to play. And I will always respect him for that. And it's in a perfect world, you'd be able to keep him on a nice deal. But that's just not how these things work sometimes. So I understand the frustration that some fans might have with him departing. And it's just an overall sadness that we are going to lose him, but we're building towards the future. I wish Alex nothing but the best. And, I was always happy to give him a salute whenever he was out there doing his thing or, had a hard tackle or a really nice defensive play, what have you. So I will miss you, Alex Ring.
Alex finishes his Austin FC career, 137 appearances, 13 goals, 24 assists across all competitions. And just sitting here, really over the last couple of days since this news came out, like thinking about some of our favorite Alex Ring moments, like the one that has always stuck with me is actually from one of the, I can count on one hand the number of home games that I've missed in Austin FC's first 4 seasons. This was actually one of them, San Jose at home in that first season in 2021. Assists a John Gallagher goal, then scores just an absolute screamer from outside the box to put Austin up 3-1 in the first half. We're feeling great. I was working that day. I remember texting you like as I'm checking in on the game. You're pumped up at halftime. And then the second half comes, and not only do we lose 4-3, but Alex Ring also gets tossed out with a red card. And I know that was a loss. I know it ultimately was not a great result for him or for the team, but I've always thought that game really embodied the Alex Ring experience, like some of the tenacity that you said, like sometimes that temper took him too far. He had multiple red cards here, if I recall correctly, through the first 2 seasons, I think. And yeah, like, you said, what you're going to get with Alex Ring. What I would add onto that list is he's going to motherfuck at least one other guy out there on the field. Is always running his mouth. And even in that last game against Colorado on decision day a few weeks back, right? He's getting into it with the 18-year-old keeper, Adam Beaudry, before the penalty shot by Driussi there. So that was one for me. What comes to your mind when we think back on Alex's time here?
I mean, you took that one right out from underneath me there, because that was definitely going to be mine. There's like the really vivid memory of watching him just talk so much shit to this teenager and be like, yeah, you're about to get scored on here, dude. I don't know if I can point to one thing necessarily. Maybe last year, I believe New England, where he gets that super late equalizer with I think it was a left-footed strike.
I think you might be right. But there's another one outside of the box, right? He would just uncork those randomly.
Yeah, just an absolute screamer, goes in the back of the net. And, I shouldn't say I've never been so happy to get a draw, but like that was such a satisfying draw and gave us a little bit more hope. It was like, okay, we were able to get a point here. Maybe we can make this happen in the long run. Ultimately, it was not the case, but that was a really great highlight for me. But just overall with Alex's time, I am always going to remember how hard he played and the fact that he was a leader and the fact that he was willing to throw it into the fire every single time that he was out there on the pitch. He wasn't backing down from any of the illustrious names that have been at QT or teams we've seen on the road, anything like that. I'll always love his chase down kind of LeBron-esque tackles from behind where he gets a guy on a slide and he's able to get the ball first, and it just looks really nice. Sometimes you get carded for it, but that's the Alex Ring experience, really. And like the dude is just a fighter. He's a warrior. And I think that he was a fantastic captain for this team that was really trying to find an identity for a long time. And I know that, we constantly talk about not necessarily focusing in on the results, but how we got to that point to get the results. And I think that this team found a bit of an identity where it was like, we're going to play hard, We're going to throw it into the flame. We're going to do these things. If we're able to come out on top, fantastic. And I think that Alex was the person who really embodied that the most. And I thought it was contagious for a lot of guys because, again, if you look at the course of the 4 seasons that we've had with this club, there have been more lows than there have been highs. And I think that there was a lot of points in time where guys could have packed it in. And I don't think Alex Ring would have allowed that for a lot of people. And so I am incredibly sad to see him go. And I just have a ton of respect for him. As much as, I hate seeing him line up a fucking free kick and decide he's going to shoot
yards out.
As much as I don't like that, I will always love and respect Alex for what he was able to put out there in regard to the product on the pitch.
Yeah, and do you think it's fair to say that, like, you bring up he helped kind of define the identity of the team over the first few years?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fair to say, and you can push back if you think I'm out of line here, I think it's fair to say that the team lost some of that identity when the armband went away from him. Whoever, whatever went into that entire decision and debacle, things definitely changed results-wise after that.
Yeah.
And you talk about the tackles, right? Like, yeah, sometimes it came with cards. Sometimes it came with a penalty being awarded to the opposing team. But, like, also I think back to just this season alone, like, one of the key moments, one of the highlights that I think if you're building a highlight reel from 2024 Austin FC, like, the tackle to assist against the Galaxy is, like, top 3, top 5 at worst. And it ain't 5 in terms of, like, the highlights this season. So, and, like, I guess from a wider view too, like, during that 2023 season where, like, he no longer has the armband, and then we're in such a bad way with the injuries that he plays the majority of the season as a center back, and is playing through multiple different injuries. Like, there's like in almost every season you can point out some aspect of what Alex Ring brought to the table and how it greatly helped the team. And to your point, like, it showed his character as a member and a leader of a team. And yeah, he's going to be, like, maybe it won't be as tough to replace or replicate the counting stats on the field, but it's going to be a tougher job to fill the gap that's left with his leadership and his character.
100%. And, like, he loses that armband back in the 23 season, and a lot of guys would pout and have a tough time handling that emotionally. But he was able to go out there night in and night out and continue to do his job wherever we asked him to be. And I'm glad you brought up that point of him being stuck in a center back position where it's just like we're scrambling and scrapping to find any way we can put out a cohesive 11, a unit that could actually, potentially secure some points in that terrible season. And Alex was always up for the task, no matter where you put him, no matter what you asked him to do. And a lot of the stuff that he had to do throughout his career here with Austin FC is not the glorious stuff. It's not the glamorous stuff that gets noticed and, like, you're scoring highlight reel goals and all of this things like we're high flying. No, he was tasked with guarding a lot of the most difficult players to defend in this league, doing a ton of the dirty work, tracking back, being in that defensive mid that we can count on in situations. And Alex, he was just always there. So love you, Cap. Gonna miss you, man, and just wish you the best.
4 other names there, though, right? And I want to start with Ethan Finley. 3 years here in Austin. Again, a pretty illustrious career when it comes to MLS and his history, his track record. As we know from that last match, right? 100 appearances for Austin FC, 12 goals, 10 assists across all competitions. And just kind of another, like, consummate professional. Like, and I think it may even be that much more important to keep a guy like Hector around because of what you're losing in the locker room with Ethan Finley. Like, I think it would be more than fair to suggest that Ethan has lost at least a half step since he got here in terms of his athleticism, that straight line speed. But we know he can still go out there and put the ball in the back of the net. He just did it a couple weeks ago to close out the season to, salvage a result at the end there, even in a meaningless game. But he has, big responsibilities with the Players Association and being one of the player reps for that. it has been important, not just for Austin, but important for advancing this league forward. And so I don't think Ethan Finley is done in MLS. He may be, and if he is, congrats on a fantastic career, and thanks for all the hard work that you put in here in Austin. I will always remember that first goal he put in right in front of us there in the North End to cap off the 5-1 rout of Inter Miami in the second game of the 2022 season. That was his first goal, if I recall correctly. He actually may have had a brace in that game, but I'll always remember that one because the sun had just come out. The party is on. It's already 4-1, and then we just add a little icing on the cake there. And he was great that year, man. And again, another one of those guys that always doing what he's supposed to do when he's supposed to be there. So I'm sad to see him go as well. But again, it's just like you said earlier, and like we've been saying for a while, there's just some guys that were coming up with these options this year where it just doesn't meet the trajectory of the franchise anymore, and really to no fault of their own. So a little, non-captain salute, I guess, towards Ethan Finley for his time and effort here.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself there. Just a guy who, once again, asked him to do a multitude of different things. He was always ready to do it, always willing to do it. Sounds like he was a fantastic teammate, a great member of this community as well, a leader both on the field and off the field, as you mentioned, with his Players Association stuff. I'll always remember the effort that he was willing to put in every time, no matter what we were doing. If we were down 3-0 or if we were up in a 4-1 type of game, like he was always going to give you the same type of effort. And that is a huge thing. Your career is so short in this league in regard to the overall span of someone's lifetime. You have such a short, limited window to be a professional athlete. And the way you handle that is sometimes a bigger challenge than what you're facing on the field, because you have other life stuff going on, you have other responsibilities and everything like that. And Ethan was a wonderful teammate, a wonderful representative for this team in regard to the league in its entirety. So he will be missed. And like you said, it's one of these things where it's just not in the cards, given his age, given where we were at in regard to the salary, given how we want this team to look going forward. It's just not in the cards, and that's not an indictment on him. It's just how this business works. And if he does continue to play in MLS, I will absolutely be cheering for him and rooting for him. But if this is the end of the road for him, he had a fantastic career, and I'm just really grateful for the time he had here with Austin and the effort that he was willing to put forth to try to get points for this otherwise mid team for 4 seasons.
Yeah. And Johan Valencia, right? And this one, I may be out of these 3, I'm the least upset about losing, I think, the play on the field, but we love Johan, man. This is the one guy that we have our own nickname for. Yeah. Just that sprouted up out of his play and our admiration for it when it was going well for him. Johan finishes his Austin FC tenure 3 seasons, 76 appearances, 90 tackles, 49 interceptions, and I have here in the notes countless punishments of opponents. And to that end, he ends up with 4 assists here, 17 yellow cards, and that averaging about 1 per start there, I believe. 23 total shots, 1 on target, and that was the slow roller into the arms of Andrew Thomas against Seattle earlier this season, which was our only shot on target of that match. And so, look, man, again, we had some fun at Johan's expense over the years, but we also went through, like I said, periods of him earning that nickname. The Punisher came out of a great run of form defensively for Johan Valencia, and I think we saw fits and starts of the talent that he does have, and I just don't ever think it was a great fit stylistically here in Austin. And you talk about a guy that I haven't heard anybody say anything close to a bad thing about Johan Valencia, and a lot of people would highlight how great of a smile he has as well. So wherever he goes, it's it seems to me like he's going to be going back to South America here, but he's another guy that I'm just going to follow from afar because I don't have, outside of just like the perception from my point of view, that again, it was never really a great fit. And that going forward, again, he fit into this group of guys that we were going to unfortunately have to say goodbye to. I also just don't have anything bad to say about him. So I appreciate his time and effort here. He was always busting his ass when he was on the field. And so, another half salute to Johan there for his 3 seasons.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, we definitely had some fun at Johan's expense, and you understand the limitations that he had on the field, but you also understood what he was going to bring, a level of toughness, a level of tenacity that he was always going to have. And like, you look back at this season, right? And you start out the year without a healthy 10. You had that disaster versus Minnesota where we go on the road to, I believe, like Orlando, Seattle first.
Orlando, yeah.
And like, he was integral in some of those like games where it was like, we are going to muck this game up, make it nasty, and hope for the best here. And like, at that point in time when we're just trying to find ways to get points to stay afloat until we can actually get 10 back and get healthy, he was there. And like, he was huge in those moments and in those games to just stifle teams and take, I mean, as much punishment as he doled out, he took a lot too. He's getting blasted with shots. He's blocking shots and everything. Yeah. Very physical player. And I love Johan. Like you said, the Punisher nickname, that moniker, we came up with him, and just the good times of like putting on some music on the way up there and be like, Johann Sebastian the Punisher, Baklava, and just like really enjoying that and like getting that good energy going, because we're excited to see him and excited to see him take somebody out and put a hard foul on somebody. And I also look back to that last Galaxy game there where we got plenty of licks in on Ricky the douche, and that was awesome. And again, another guy who, to your point, never heard a bad word about him. Seemed like a fantastic teammate. Really, just kind of a victim of his own circumstance, where he got that big deal. And we're all anticipating, we're bringing this guy over and like he's going to set the world on fire. And that really wasn't the case. And that's part of the ignorance that we had in regard to like actually understanding his game and being able to go watch some tape on him and like what he was actually going to bring to the table. Then you have the emergence of Dani, kind of loses that spot and everything. So, it was a ride with highs and lows for most of these guys that we're saying goodbye to here. But more often than not, I was incredibly, I shouldn't say thrilled, but incredibly happy to see what Johan was bringing to the team. And despite the fact that we weren't able to get him into the net there and like he wasn't able to get a goal for Austin, he stopped plenty of goals. And if you're a defender in that defensive midfield position and your job is to do the dirty work, sometimes that's as good as a goal. So a salute to Johan as well, and I wish him all the best.
Both Matts out of here as well, starting with Matt Hedges. Just 21 appearances in his, season and a third, basically, here after coming over in the trade with Toronto last year. 13 starts in those 21 appearances. 2 goals, though. So, I mean, Matt Hedges, brought the offense as well as the defense. I don't think I have much more to add because he was here for such a short amount of time, because he never really locked down that starting spot in the center back rotation. But when he was in there, it's another guy that you could say, was always giving his all right there for the team. And ultimately, he's a Dallas boy. So maybe this is it for his career. I personally, just like thinking about it off the top of my head, I wouldn't be surprised to see him show up on a supplemental spot for one more season in Dallas. Mm-hmm. And if that happens, good for him. Matt, I'll let you know. I'm going to give you the double birds when you come to Q2 Stadium. But, another guy that seemed like he was always out there giving his all for the team when he was called upon, and also not making a stink as a former, I think, 2-time defensive player or defender of the year in MLS, not making a stink about his role on the team when he wasn't getting a ton of time, renegotiated his contract to help the team get under the salary cap this past year. So, a team guy through and through. And I think we can also loop Mr. Matt Bersano in here as well, because Bersano never appeared for Austin FC. in his 2 seasons, but we got plenty of entertaining clips that sometimes get used in certain memes, and you certainly got plenty of home renovation tips if you follow him on Instagram. So, and I'm also glad for Matt Bersano that the injury scare from 2 or 3 months back was not a serious leg issue like we thought initially after he posted that pic with the brace. So, best of luck to Matt in his next endeavor. Soccer or otherwise, who knows, man? For a guy who hasn't played in 2 years, it could go any direction.
Yeah, for sure. Matt Hedges, the big salmon.
Like that one. There you go.
Should have, damn it, could have had that one earlier. But we called him on the tail end of his career. Like you said, he's got 2-time Defender of the Year. He was a fantastic player in his prime, but this team and this roster was just trying to find anything to patch lineups together after the disaster of Claudio Reyna, who will not get a good farewell goodbye from us at any point in time.
Yeah.
So both the Mats wish you well. Hope you enjoyed your time here at Austin. Thank you for everything you did for the team.
So I talked about we had the options exercised on Danny and Jimmy, but then on Friday, we get the best news of the week. Dani Pereira inks a contract extension with Austin FC. It's a 1+1 here, E. So now signed through 2025 with a team option for 2026. So extending that team control of the player for an additional year. And then maybe even more crucial for roster construction for the upcoming season, he also got a green card. So now Danny is no longer taking up an international roster slot. As we talk about this, let's bring up the roster and salary cap spreadsheets here at the northendpodcast.com. We now have 2 international slots open. I think we got to hope, we think there's a potential for Leo Väisänen to be on the move here this offseason. Even if he's not, I think Hader Obrian is a guy that I don't think we should be surprised to see get a green card this offseason as well, considering he's been here in the States for a number of years now. But getting Danny off of that international slot list is again, crucial to roster construction going forward. And I hope that the legal team of the club can help accelerate any of the green card processes for guys remaining on this list, because we need them, right? Like if you're going out to try to sign more DPs, some U22s, usually those guys are going to be internationals. So it doesn't have to be, but I think we're going to see some more movement there. So I guess your thoughts. Again, it's good news that Danny is sticking around.
Fantastic news that he's sticking around. Fantastic news that we got him off an international slot. You're looking at the old spreadsheets here on northendpodcast.com. You see what we're looking at. You got to get Leo out of there, and then hopefully you can get Hader a green card, and then you have those 4 spots, and you see 4 spots remaining on the senior roster. You have 4 spots of potentially available for the U22, maybe a third DP. We need those international spots to be open to upgrade this team, and I anticipate that stuff coming down the pipeline at some point in time. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Very happy for Danny, personally. Very happy that he's going to be a part of the team going forward here. And, you look at the length of that deal and everything, and we've been speculating for a while, like, are we going to be able to sell him moving forward? Mm-hmm. And we've been this is the second offseason in the row, if I'm getting this correct, where we've wondered and speculated, like, is he trying to get a bigger payday, going forward? And like, has that held up some of these negotiations with him? So I'm happy to see him on this 1+1 here. And, a dude who's just going to get better. Like, he's going to continue to improve as he has pretty much every season. You saw him take on some different responsibilities this year where we really wanted to get him up the field and try to get him involved in the offense to varying degrees of success. When he was able to do it, it looked really good. At the times when other times when he was not able to do it, it really hurt us. But he's a young player. Again, another guy who I think is ready and willing to throw it into the fire as well. A guy who's never backing down from people, like, let his emotions sometimes show on his sleeve and really play hard and everything, go through that stuff. So I respect that about him for sure. And I'm just happy that he's here, but we still got work to do with this roster. And I think this is a puzzle piece that needed to get done before you could really start to shape everything else.
Yeah, because like 1+1 is not a long-term deal,
No.
right?
No.
So I think that Dani is very much still, to use a term here, in the shop window, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we could see a sale as soon as this summer. And I think it's probably likely over the next year and a half. If that move is going to be made, it could turn out where Dani kind of turns it, right? The trajectory shifts a little bit to him being a more like an MLS lifer, right? I think that could also happen here. And if that's the case, I hope that comes in Austin, right? That after this 1 year of the extension, then if there's no sale, that you see that, maybe 3+1 come after that, give him a little bit of a raise. Like, he's going to have to, like you said, that improvement that we expect to continue for him, he's got to show that step this coming year, whether he wants to be sold overseas or stay here long term or go wherever, right? He's got to continue that improvement as well. And like you mentioned, right, the roster spots. That's what I think that I've seen a number of just kind of anonymous fans, whether I'm scrolling social media or in, Slack channels or what have you. Like, we got to keep in mind the constraints that we're under, not just from the salary cap perspective, but the roster slot perspective. Now that Dani is confirmed here, we have just those 4 spots open. So, like, floating a guy, like we're going to talk about a rumor here in a second, like floating anybody that is not a locked on game in, game out starter, that again, we don't have to fill these 4 slots with the 3 U22s and a third DP. But if it's not a special roster slot type of guy, to me, it's got to be TAM level, right? These guys that are coming in, again, it's about the role that that we need out of the players filling these remaining 4 roster slots on the senior roster, right? Because you don't really think you're going to get that out of a supplemental spot. That's not a homegrown talent, right? That's, kind of one of the, those 22 under 22 guys like that you can find on supplemental rosters around the league. And of course, we could have more senior slots open if Roto is able to move 1 or more of these guys on the 16 players that are currently on the senior roster. But yeah, man, again, it's just like the cap. We have a lot of flexibility there, but it's still relatively limited flexibility in terms of the roster slots that we have open.
Yep. You got to move on from Leo. You got to get that green card for Hader. Hopefully a buyout coming for G. And again, like we just did all of these kind of farewells for all these guys. G fits right into all of those, compliments we doled upon these guys who are consummate professionals and just great teammates, excellent leaders on and off the field. But it's just not in the cards going forward where we're paying $1 million for a 9 who's giving us 5 goals a season, because you look at this roster right now, you look at the way it's constructed. We have it's not just a skeleton anymore. You have some meat on these bones now with your Desslers, with your Bukas, with your Svatoks, with the emergence of Brandon Hines-Ike. You have some meat on these bones. We just want to add some really luxurious clothes to this body that we have here with some high profile players who are going to be night in, night out, not just starters, but fucking producers, guys who you're getting the counting stats out of.
Impact
because
players.
as well as much as it's nice to talk about how these guys are great professionals and fantastic leaders and everything, we do need dudes who can go out there and just score fucking goals and get shit done. And like, we have the opportunity to do that. There are still a few things that need to be tweaked, yes, but I am right there with you. We need some high profile, I guess not names, but we need some high profile players who will come in here and can excel in their role, because you do have the framework for a solid 15 guys that you can count on going forward here. So There's still work to be done. You look at the figures here in regard to how much cap space we're going to be potentially working with. I'll let you get into some speculation with what Danny might have come in at and how much money we're going to have available going forward. But we have to upgrade this roster. We've gotten to this point. This is the third window that Roto has been talking about. He needed 3 windows to be able to like really transform this team. And now you're at the point where it's like, okay, signing some dogs to get in here and come play for us is the top priority.
Yeah. And in terms of that salary cap estimate, again, on these sheets at the northendpodcast.com, right now we're projecting 3.63 million in budget space available, but that doesn't include a potential raise for John Kolmanich, right? Like that contract extension is kicking in early in 2025 when we turn over the league year. We did take off the U22 benefits cap wise, so his cap hit in the past has been $200K. Now we have a placeholder at 350, which has been his guaranteed compensation to this point. But then, right, Danny was on 138,000 guaranteed last year. I said, I don't remember if it was last week or the week before or when in terms of our recent offseason episodes, but like I was kind of pointing to the idea that if you're giving Dessler 500K and Svatak 300K, how much more can you realistically pay Dani Pereira, right? I think, like, again, we want him to get paid as much as he can because go get your money, man. You deserve it. But then, but just from the roster construction standpoint, how much is Roto going to give him? So again, I'm sticking with the idea that I don't think it can be that much more than what Dessler's getting at $500,000 there. That's still a significant come up from his 138 that he was being paid this past year. But even if you say, let's give Danny, let's just say max cap hit, right? I don't think he's going to go up to a TAM level player, but let's say we gave him, $700K, right?
Yep.
So then we're down to like 2.9. And then let's say that, because we saw some salary increases for guys that were already under contract last off season. So like, even if you build in a 10 or 15% increase in the total guaranteed compensation that we're giving out to these players under contract, you still have more than enough salary cap space for those special roster slots. So again, I don't think my thoughts on the flexibility cap wise that Roto have not changed. Again, you got to understand what's going into this estimate or what is left out of this estimate at this point. Like 3.6 million in cap space, the number is lower, but until we get the actual figures, it's, anything else we would be guessing would be just that. It would be just a guess. So, it's again, it's exciting, but now that we've got the option decisions, we've got the Danny extension. The only thing that's kind of up in the air right now is Hector, and that's either he's on a supplemental spot or not. So now it's just we play the waiting game to see that green smoke pop up.
And we're waiting for that green smoke. We got something for that.
Anything else for you on this? Again, like, I'm not surprised to see that sale over the next 18 months. If the right offer comes in, Roto said before, everybody is available for the right price. And, it also, when something like that comes across, right, it also has to be up to the player. What does Danny want to do, right? Or what are his aspirations? We can make some educated guesses at that, but ultimately it will come down to him, who the team that's offering, what they're offering, all that stuff. So we'll keep our ears to the ground, right, in the rumor streets on Danny there. But ultimately, just for this coming season, it's great to have him back in the fold, and not with the extension on that option year. Now we don't have to worry about 6 months from now a team can come take him from us for free, which was the case until this extension was announced.
That is the key there. I don't know too much about the interest level that other clubs might have for Danny. I am going to go out on a limb here and say that I don't think it's too hot. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's
in terms of like making a vertical leap for like quality of league. I agree. Yeah. I think if you shopped him around MLS, you could get a pretty penny, or however you want to say, a lot of gam, right? Yeah. But like, it seems like to me that the overseas move would be not a horizontal move, right? Like I think it would be an upgrade just getting overseas, right? Getting more eyes on your play over there in Europe. But yeah, I mean, I think if that big time like Power Five league, Big Five league, whatever they reference it in the global soccer world, however they reference it, like if that was like, I feel like teams would already be kind of knocking down the door to go
exactly.
down. And so, but again, if that happens, then that's good because that means Danny's playing very well for our favorite team.
Yes, I think if that is the move that he eventually wants, he's going to have a solid year here in 25.
Let's talk about a little rumor here. This is being reported by @PanamaGoal, which is a Panamanian outlet there on Twitter. And I believe the first place I saw this was Moon Tower reporting on this rumor that Austin FC is interested in Panamanian midfielder Anibal Godoy. Godoy is a 34-year-old defensive midfielder who's coming off his 10th season in MLS. He spent the last 5 with Nashville. He's the captain of the Panamanian national team, so he's got that going for him. But when you dig into this, anywhere past surface level, and I think even on the surface, saying 34-year-old defensive midfielder, like that doesn't, like, we just keep Alex Ring, man. Godoy has not made more than 27 appearances in any of his 10 MLS seasons and has only been over 23 appearances once since 2018. Godoy was on $721K guaranteed with Nashville last season, which means he was a TAM player for them. His statistical profile is one that signals to me he'd probably be a decent addition offensively with the way his progressive passing ability seems to be there. His assists are definitely there, at least from the MLS, giving out those secondary assists. There weren't a ton to go around in Nashville the last 2 seasons, but also seems somewhat average defensively in terms of those counting stats. Counting stats defensively don't always tell the full story, but if we brought Godoy in here, on anything but a supplemental deal, it would leave me scratching my head, and my initial reaction would be disappointment. Again, further context can be provided. If we move 2 or 3 guys off the senior roster, then maybe somebody like this would make some sense, certainly on a deal that's half or less of that former salary from this past year. If you could get him on supplemental deal, then yeah, hell yeah, I'm in. We have those spots, and we know they don't count against the cap. But this just ultimately, overall, this does not read like anything but an agent trying to get his aging client another contract. And I don't think it's going to be with Austin FC. What are your thoughts on Anibal Godoy?
It looks like a player that doofus Claudio Reyna would give a 2-year contract to with a play 11 games and you automatically get extended. That's what it looks like to me. So I would not be happy if we signed him to a senior roster spot. We just talked about how important it is to get the most and maximize the talent on this roster out of these 4 spots that we have available right now. Of course, we can speculate about G moving on. Of course, we can speculate about Leo moving on. But when you're looking at it right now, there's 4 spots. And I don't want him to be on one of those 4 spots. I don't forecast him wanting to take a huge pay decrease or pay cut from what he was making last year, which means that he would be right there at the TAM level again. And I don't want that because we just talked about the fact that we have guys right now who we're paying TAM money to who are just not top tier kind of guys that this roster needs. And, I'm more so worried about Dukes rumors more than anything, because that's where I've been, just trying to hold on to getting that signing coming in. But this would not be something I would be overly excited about unless, like you said, he comes in on a supplemental, you get him on a really good price, and he's a guy that we can get spot starts out of and rotational 30, 25 minutes here and there. Bring him in as a defensive kind of guy, like you said, profiles a bit like Alex Ring. So if that was the case, okay, but I don't foresee that A, happening, and B, it's not really a player that I'm overly excited about getting. We do need some help in the midfield
for sure.
with these departures of Johan and Alex now. Like, we do need some help, but I just think that with the amount of U22 guys who are out there who are just absolute studs, who then you can also sell going forward, it just makes so much more sense to be prioritizing getting somebody like that instead of a bit of a journeyman MLS veteran to come in. We have those guys. We have those guys on this team already. Like,
and we just got rid of a couple.
Yes.
That, like, wouldn't we have just kept Alex Ring on an Annabelle Godoy number?
Yeah.
Again, I know there can be more that goes into it than that, but and another thing I've been thinking about before we kind of close out our roster talk here for the episode is that, remember how we assumed that the way Roto got Matt Bersano onto the supplemental roster was because he was under that threshold where you can buy somebody down to put them on the supplemental with allocation money. Well, we know now what the reserve and the senior minimum salaries will be next season. The senior minimum salary will be $104,000, which I think, if we apply that same logic to next season, means that any senior roster player earning less than $208,000 would be eligible to be bought down to the supplemental roster with allocation money. So there could be, and those guys would certainly deserve it, right? Brennan Heinzike signed a new contract. He was just $8 below $200K last year. Yermay Biru did not sign an extension, but maybe he gets a little bump in salary. He would certainly deserve it. But let's say those guys are both on that same number, right at $200K. That is a more creative way, if that's how the rules work. Again, this is one thing I want to be asked of Roto at some point, is how did you get Matt Bersano onto the supplemental roster? Just to confirm for us our theory. So if we were correct in that theory, that means that if those two guys are on a same salary, or anybody under that $208,000 mark next year could be potentially put on the supplemental roster. And that's a way where you don't have to use $1 million buyout on Giassi Zardes. You don't have to necessarily sell Leo. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can also do those things. But just thinking about ways that we can shift these roster slots around, that's what's been kind of on my mind over the last couple of days. And yeah, that's what I walk around thinking about here. So. Anything else for you on the state of the roster?
Fuck you, Claudio Reyna.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's on my mind today, but it's just really lingering how much I hate him.
Yeah, well, until everybody he signed to an outrageous contract is gone, and there are still a few remaining.
Yep.
We'll be thinking about him.
Yep.
Let's move on here. Let's talk a little Austin FC 2, or even the academy here, because we got, and I saw this, I think, first from our friends over there at We Are Austin TV. Brian Arellano posted to his Instagram late this week with a picture of Austin, the downtown skyline, and says, quote, "Soon goodbyes to this city. For real, grew on me." So he's still got 2 option years with Austin FC 2. Like you said about Matt Bersano posting, or his wife posting pictures saying goodbye Texas, this is probably a pretty good indication that Brian Arellano is on his way out. Represented the U.S. youth national team, U19s, at domestic camp 2 years ago. He's been a member of the Austin FC Academy since, I believe, June 2021. And again, had 2 options. So I remember back to last offseason, I don't think we'll get an announcement about options from FCito. Would be nice if they did let us know that. But I don't know, man. We saw Vigo Ortiz leave a couple months ago. Now we see Brian potentially, or seemingly, on his way out. We also know that his younger brother, Lucho, is a good player. I believe U14s or U15s right now. So hopefully we're also not losing the younger Arellano here. So we'll keep our eye on where he goes. But I can't say it made me happy to see that.
No, definitely not. A solid contributor to the FCito team. And yeah, man, that Austin City, it'll get you. It got me too, brother. Hooked me in.
Came back multiple times.
Yeah, stay away from that 6th Street though, dude. Look, it's definitely something I'm excited about. But we're starting to see, like, this is our first experience, obviously, with minor league teams in soccer and, how these guys come and go. And there's not a whole lot of transparency or answers as to what's going on or contracts or what it looks like and everything. So if that is the case, absolutely going to wish him well. Have to see what takes place with his younger brother as well and go from there. But if that was it for him, got a ring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Moving on to the international call-ups, because we are right back into another international window. So take a week off, MLS playoffs. That's not frustrating at all. But Julio Cascante called up to the Costa Rican national team, Los Ticos, 2 Nations League quarterfinal matches against Panama this coming week, Thursday, November 14th, Monday, November 18th. So good luck to Julio. And hopefully we can see him kind of break back into this side with some regularity, because ever since they made that coaching change, he's kind of been on the outside looking in, more of just a substitute pretty consistently here.
Wish him well, for sure.
Bobosi Birahwanga got called up for Uganda's final 2 AFCON qualifiers. They will take on second place in their group. Uganda's right now in first place by 2 points. They take on second place South Africa on Friday, November 15th. And then they'll close out their qualifiers on Tuesday, November 19th against Congo. A single point from either match will clinch a berth in the 2025 AFCON tournament for Uganda. So hopefully they can get it done against South Africa. I believe they can also, depending on the other results in the group over this international break, they could lose both and still clinch. But let's go ahead and get it done here on Friday and start turning our attention towards the AFCON tournament. We'll be watching. Good luck to Bobo out there.
Go get him, Bobo.
And then the somewhat surprising but really awesome news. Jimmy Farkalin called up to the Liberian national team. It's his first call-up at the senior national team level. Liberia has 2 AFCON qualifying matches, Wednesday, November 13th against Togo, Sunday, November 17th against Algeria. The Liberian team must win in both of these games and need to make up a 5-goal differential deficit currently against Equatorial Guinea, to who they don't play, to advance here, and may even need some additional help. So it is a tall task ahead of them. But look, man, when it's Jimmy time, anything's possible.
Hey, if you need some goals, he likes scoring goals, and he's gonna definitely go try to score some goals. So congratulations to him. I hope it goes well.
Yeah, congrats to Jimmy on that. We'll certainly have our eyes on the Liberian team. And now, let's close it out with some nonsense. Appreciate everybody who voted in the first round of the 2024 Austin FC Goal of the Year bracket. Voting is now closed here on Saturday when we're recording. By the time you are listening to this on Sunday afternoon or beyond, voting will be open here for the second round, the Sweet 16, as it were, here this year. I know the goal that you're looking for. You do not have anything to worry about here. So let's go through some of the first round results. The 2 most dominant goals in their first round matchups. Number 1 was Owen Wolf's goal in the 75th minute at Toronto. That was the 5 seed in the away region. And number 2, the call out, the 3 seed in the Vibes region. You called it last week as the sleeper to win the whole thing. Guilherme Biru, 67th minute against San Jose. Those were the 2 top vote getters here in the first round. We had 6 of the 16 matchups where the lower seeded goal advanced. So again, second round voting is open now. You can go to any of our social media accounts. You can find links there, or just go to the northendpodcast.com. All of those links will take you there for our second round article. You can see the bracket and submit your votes here for the 16 goals that remain. We did get very close to having a 1 seed get upset in the Verde region. Osman Bukhari's lone goal in the 84th minute at Nashville came just a few votes away from upsetting Hader Obrion's 19th minute goal at home against the Galaxy. That is the Alex Ring steal and assist. Yeah, so I see your face there. It was close, but we move on. All 4-1 seeds still intact. But we did have 2 number 2 seeds get upset by the 7s. You get Ethan Finley's equalizing goal from decision day, takes out Sebastian Driussi's headed attempt kind of back across his body coming out of halftime against Sporting KC. That was also a game-winning goal, technically. So an upset in the home region. And then we have an upset in the away region. Driussi gets it back on the board there. His 7th-seeded goal at the Galaxy 4 or 5 weeks ago in the 55th minute upsets John Gallagher's opening goal, his game-winning goal at Nashville in the 43rd minute. So again, you can go check out this bracket. You've got links to the goals here in the bracket. Unfortunately, we do not have the ability to put those links into the ballot itself. So maybe something we can hope to figure out through a different medium next year. But this seemed like, we didn't have too many complaints about that. So anything else for you, E, here on the first round results or the second round matchup? So your Biru goal now taking on Danny's 79th minute goal against Rayados. That is a tough matchup.
That is a tough matchup, but I feel pretty confident that Guilherme is going to get it done. I'm just looking forward to the second round here. There's some tough choices in this round here.
Yep.
It's just crazy how quick these got weeded out.
Yeah, I know. Well, when you only got 32,
yeah.
Half from what we were at in this exercise 2 seasons ago. One I've got my eye on here, E, because of how overwhelmingly the field voted for Owen Wolf's only goal. He's up against Emiliano Rigoni's only goal, that winner against Houston. I think aesthetically, Owen, for me, if I'm voting here, right, aesthetically, Owens would win. But how meaningful the Rigoni goal was, that is a tough decision, man.
That is a good matchup.
So we will revisit this on next week's episode. We will be down to just 8, right? So over the next month, continue playing along with us here and helping us crown the 2024 goal of the year. Shout out once again to everybody who joined in and voted. Damian Loss plays here tonight on Saturday. So another playoff matchup for Louisville City SC, and we will check in on him now.
Wow, the best keeper in the world.
Here on Sunday, it's not just me. E decided to join in as well, and we got a little bit of a Mooch appearance. If you're watching on the YouTube, you can say hi to Mooch there. But E, it was not a great Saturday night for the best keeper in the world. Damian, of course, gets the start here for top-seeded Louisville City, taking on the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, Rhode Island FC. And this one went south fairly quickly. E, first goal scored for Rhode Island in the 9th minute off of a fast break. And then the second goal all the way in the 78th minute, top left corner on a shot from the center of the box. And then from our resident Louisville City fan, Trevor Allison, letting us know that Damian committed a foul for a horrific penalty in second half stoppage time. He did save the PK, but Rhode Island put it in off the rebound for the third goal, and that was it, 3-0. So Louisville City bows out after winning the regular season title in USL. Trevor did provide some further context for this matchup this year, E. Louisville was shut out 3 times this season. 2 of them were by Rhode Island. They lost twice at home this year. Both were against Rhode Island FC. So Trevor just said Rhode Island just appears to have their number this season. So Louisville bows out of the USL playoffs. And Damian Loss still officially on loan with Louisville through the end of the calendar year, but certainly not what you wanted to see, not what you wanted to hear about Saturday night's match there for Damian. And man, Saturday night was a night, I guess, of upsets across the American soccer landscape.
Yeah, it's super disappointing. Feel for Damian, feel for those guys, but it sounds like that Rhode Island team just knew how to play them. really wasn't intimidated by the fact that Louisville had dominated the USL for the majority of the season. So, I'm just super bummed for Damian. The fact that we now no longer have any teams in the playoffs here and across any leagues. And, I don't want to take away from the fact that they had a wonderful year, and that includes Damian, who had a fantastic individual season. But I know they're disappointed. I'm disappointed, and that's just a tough way to bow out after a really impressive campaign.
Yeah, so again, not the ending that any Damian fans wanted, any Louisville City fans wanted, but they did bring home some hardware this year, right? They've got the Players' Shield from their regular season championship. And so we will welcome Damian back to Central Texas with open arms, and interested to see what his path looks like in the 2025 season. Is it another loan spell? Does he find a spot on the Austin bench? What happens there? Certainly looking forward to finding that out as we go forward.
Yeah, with everything that we've been keeping our eye on and circulating in regard to getting this roster improved, the extensions that have come in, the guys we've declined, Damian has been out there with Louisville, and hopefully we see him here, but ultimately I want what's best for him to continue to improve. Obviously, we know who we have in the net right now and what he brings to the table. So, just another thing for us to keep our eye on here in this offseason.
So that was either very good or very bad for Damian and Louisville City. Thanks, ZG, for the Sunday afternoon update. And just a quick Academy update. We may also have an Academy update spliced in there at the end of the Damian Loss check-in there, best keeper in the world. But we did have some other news come across earlier this week. I didn't see it publicized, I think, anywhere. So we appreciate Chad for letting us know that 3 of the U15s, Xavier Brown, Roberto Menares, and Ryan Diaz, all 3 of those young men were invited to the U.S. National ID Camp this month. So congrats to them. You love to see that. And I don't know, that kind of matches up with how we've seen these results come out from the U15s. Like when you score 86 goals in a month or whatever it is, people probably take notice. So congrats to those 3 guys.
Absolutely.
All right, E. Anything else for you before we shut it down here on episode 186?
No, sir. It was a good one.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us here on another episode of the North End Podcast. We will be back next Sunday recapping everything that happens in the Austin FC universe between now and then, and of course talking the second round results of the Goal of the Year bracket. Enjoy your week, everybody. We will do the same, and we'll see you back here next Sunday. Till then, he's E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.